Louisiana is part of, I think it's about an 11 state, let's say, coalition teaming up with other states to sue Google. What's the deal? They too big? They too bad? Are they unfair? Are they biased? What's the deal?
Probably all of the above, Robert. Look, I think that we have spoken many times on this show, probably dating back 18, 20 months ago, where I first raised the alarm as to the growing power and breadth and scope and reach of these platforms. This has long been coming. We had a big bipartisan coalition that investigated the practices that Google has been engaged in. I've said many times that what the expectation of consumers out there and citizens in utilizing the internet, and especially in searching for key terms, is not what it was and what their expectation is. And this suit is just one step in bringing those platforms to heel.
What you said was Google has grown into a big tech monopoly that has stifled competition. What's the difference between stifling competition and just being really good at your job?
Well, the difference is that here's what it's like. It's like a virtual marketplace, right? Under which the person that one company basically owns the fence, owns the gate, determines who comes into that gate, who goes out of it, who gets to sell inside of it, and what they get to sell. And so again, so if you and Aaron both were manufacturers of widgets, and irrespective of what Aaron did in order to sell her widget online, she has to go through Google. If Google prefers your widget over hers, then your widget is the one that's going to be placed out there rather than hers, even if her widget is far superior and there is a better price for it.
What's the solution to this? I mean, they'll say they're a private company. They can do what they want. What is the answer that would please you and them as a business?
Look, I think that there's a big answer to it. It was a law enacted in the late 1800s called the Sherman Antitrust Act. This is not anything new in our republic, right? We have seen, especially novel industries, basically, have emerged, and those industries create monopolistic and predatory power inside the marketplace. And if left unchecked, they prey upon others and they push out and stifle innovation. We saw that in the days of the big trust in the early parts. We saw it in AT&T. We saw it in IBM. We saw it in Microsoft. And here we are today in seeing it with Google and Facebook and Twitter and other big tech platforms, Amazon, big tech platforms.
Let's say for an instant that Jeff Landry and all these other AGs across the country could snap their fingers, Google's declare a monopoly, and they have to change. What would Google have to change? In your mind, what would, as a monopoly, what should they not do anymore?
Well, first of all, to start off with, I think that Google has to divest itself of DoubleClick. That's number one, and that's kind of getting in the weeds. I do think that basically those social platforms and the big tech platforms should be placed inside the same regulatory regime as radio broadcasters and television broadcasters, right? I think that the same when it comes to advertising, when it comes to reporting, when it comes to making sure consumers and advertisers and those that are advertising see and are know exactly what they're getting for the dollars and advertising dollars that they're spending. There's a lot of layers to this onion, but I think that what it looks like is breaking them up and creating some sort of regulatory regime. Now, look, you're talking to a person who really doesn't like a tremendous amount of regulation. I don't think we've got to pile on additional regulation. I think that what the EU did almost a year ago was almost counterproductive to what they were trying to do. I think that we already have a regulatory regime that we can drop them in to start with and see how that affects the marketplace.
They got a lot of lawyers, and you got 11 states, and this is any way this reaches a solution before like 2040?
Well, I mean, look, Robert, I think it's important to look back at history. These cases are very complex. They take time. Even the first cases brought under the Sherman Antitrust Act in the early 1900s took many years. But again, I always go back to that old adage of, the best time to plant a tree is either 30 years ago or today. And of course, the longer we allow them to go unchecked, only the greater their power becomes. Look, I don't believe that Americans are only starting to get a picture of the breadth and scope of their reach and the amount of data that they're gathering on each and every one of us in our daily lives. Again, I've always said maybe we want that data to be collected on us. But at the end of the day, I think that the consumers certainly deserve a quid pro quo. In other words, we deserve something for what they're mining from us and then turning around and monetizing. And so, again, it's going to be an interesting discussion. I think that many more states will join after the election. We had a real good coalition of Democrats and Republicans. I think politics has muddled that, but I think the principles of how that coalition was created certainly remain.